It is my privilege to welcome you all to this panel discussion at the AI Impact Summit 2026 here at Bharat Mandapam, New Delhi. As AI systems increasingly shape economies, governance, research, and daily life, conversations around responsible development and deployment have never been more critical. Today's panel discussion focuses on a theme that sits at the very heart of this transformation: safe and trusted AI, standardization in the age of LLMs, generative AI, and agentic AI. The rapid deployment of LLMs, generative AI, and agentic AI systems are unlocking unprecedented productivity and innovation across sectors. At the same time, it raises significant concerns around safety, trust, transparency, accountability, and societal impact. This session will explore the opportunities and challenges emerging from widespread AI adoption, the role and current status of AI standards globally, how standardization can enable responsible innovation, and what more needs to be done to ensure AI delivers positive societal impact. We are privileged to have experts representing standard bodies, industry leaders, academia, and policymakers truly reflecting the multi-stakeholder approach required for a trusted AI ecosystem. Without further delay, I request Ms. Reena Garg to take the discussion forward. Thank you, and over to you, ma'am.
Thank you. Distinguished panelists, all the participants present over here, a very good afternoon to all of you. And it is my privilege to be here amongst the eminent panelists and all the participants to moderate the discussion on safe and trusted AI, especially the standardization aspect. And as artificial intelligence moves rapidly from research labs and into our governance systems, industry operation, healthcare, finance, and even in everyday decisions we make. So the question in front of us is no longer whether AI will shape the future or not. The more important question is whether it will do it responsibly. That is the important question in today's context. So the standardization plays a very critical role here, ensuring that AI systems are safe, reliable, transparent, interoperable, and aligned with human values. So today, this discussion is an opportunity to explore how technical standards and regulatory framework and ethical principle can work together to create AI systems that are, for that the citizens we are here are very confident and we can rely on those systems. So I will like to start with the question-answer sessions. Like I will be asking one questions for each panelist. And my first question is for Dr. Sridhar Chemalkonda from IIT Tirupati. So you have been working very closely with the AI domain relating to standardization, and you were also chairing the group on AI-assisted software development in JTC1 SE7. So my question for you is, how do you define trusted AI in today's era of large language model and agentic systems, and where do current governance and responsibility framework really fall short?
Firstly, thanks everyone for joining the session. I think we are discussing a very critical topic. So you asked me about trusted AI, and if I say that, let's say, if the audience here, how many of you already use, let's say, ChatGPT or any, model, and do you trust it? So the question here is like, trust is a multi-dimensional and multifaceted thing. So it's very hard to sort of define that, this is how you trust. So my perspective on this is that, of course, we have already, a couple of standards in SC42 on artificial intelligence, where, trust has been defined, in various properties, like 12 properties in terms of reliability, safety, and so on. And also, a lot more characteristics, right, in terms of when do you trust a system, when do you not trust a system. But the point that I would like to bring here is that the trust essentially varies based on the domain, based on the stakeholders, based on the autonomy of the system that we are in. Trust in let's say, a web browser versus trust in a defense system could be very different. So I think we still have to go deeper in terms of defining trust for a range of scenarios, which I think is still evolving. So on the second part of the question, I think, like I already mentioned that there are a couple of standards and technical reports on defining trust, but the challenge really is that they're still at a policy level or at a principled level. So what I see or what I envision is that there is a need to provide sector-specific guidance, go deeper into this, how you can define trust, how you can measure trust for several sectors. So the current system, they're largely focused on principles, but we need the next level of guidance so that the vendors who are making AI products as well as who are following AI process. So for example, if a simple question would be, if a software is generated using multiple agents, and now if the software fails, who will take responsibility for it? Let's say if there are 20 agents, which agent will take responsibility for it, or should the software engineer take responsibility for it? So at this point of time, the answers for these questions are still unclear. So I would say that there is a need to evolve in this direction.
Thank you, Sridhar. Very well explained. And I think standards have, to some extent, some answer to these definitions, but it's a dynamic process of laying standards. So it keeps on evolving. So, but whatever so far is there on our plate, so for the benefit of the participants, they can maybe go through those websites, like where whatever standards are actually in place, the Indian standards, the international standards, JTC1, SC42, ISO standards on AI. So we can share the links of all those things with all of you later. And we have a very relevant and very knowledgeable person, Mr. Rohit, with us today. And he is the chair of INSITS AI, the National Merit Committee of US, who is responsible for making AI standards. And Rohit, my question to you is, what roles do international standardization bodies like ISO, IC, JTC1, SE42, and national standards body like ANSI play in defining trustworthy AI frameworks?
Thank you, Reenaji. And it's a real honor to be here in Delhi. And first of all, thank you to BIS, Shitish, and Reenaji for organizing a panel on this very important topic. So the question about standardization in AI actually started coming up in 2015 and 16 timeframe. And in 2017, there was a discussion between ISO and IC, and a decision was taken to start a subcommittee focused on AI standardization. And I've been a part of this subcommittee right from the inception, and India has been a member right from day one as well. So ISO and IC, as many of you may be familiar, are international standardization organizations. And a combination of them has a committee known as Joint Technical Committee 1, JTC1, in which a lot of the information technology standards are created, like cybersecurity, privacy. And within that, the work on AI standards started in 2018, early 2018. And the good news is that we've been through several years. We've built the foundation of AI standards. And again, Sridhar mentioned a need for vertical standards, sector-specific standards. What SC42 is, it's a horizontal committee across verticals. First of all, there is a need for common vocabulary. So everybody is speaking the same language. So that's among one of the work products of SC42. Thereafter, there have been standards developed on data. There have been standards and reports developed on testing, and a variety of foundational standards for AI. And this has been done within SC42. I may also mention within SC42, there's also now a certifiable standard that got released a year and a half ago. Some of you may be familiar with, it's the first certifiable standard for management systems for AI called ISO IC 42001. And to answer Reenaji's question, that's the first kind of trusted framework. It's a beginning, it's not the end. We're on a journey. The journey's already come. since 2018. It's been 8 years, but this is going to be a multi-decade journey because AI is rapidly expanding. Capabilities are changing, within, it's not a question of a year, it's a question of a quarter. The model you used a quarter ago versus the model you use today, there is a huge difference in capability. And standards need to keep up, and that is the biggest challenge because technology is moving very fast, and as standardization bodies, we have to find ways to keep pace with it. I'll stop there for now.
Thank you, Rohit. That was a lot of information, very useful one. So since you talked about 42001, we already have a certification expert amongst us, Tim. So Tim, my question is what are the unique challenges in the certification of AI system, especially with respect to 42001 and other relevant standards?
Thank you. Thank you very much for hosting today. I think as has been mentioned, the real issue that everyone faces with AI, just as Rohit just said, is the pace of change. But nevertheless, the standard system and the associated assurance is very well aligned for that. So 42001, as was mentioned, is a framework that adapts the organisation and adapts to change. So even today, what we're seeing is that all the big general purpose AI providers have 42001 certification. And we also have, with some of the emerging challenges, some of the standards that were mentioned. So the big standard for the AI management, alongside the AI management system standard, is the standard for cybersecurity, so 27001, 27701 around data privacy. And those standards have been around for 10 or 20 years and very established, used by hundreds of thousands of organizations around the world. And some of those things we already know, we can bring those same statements into the emerging AI area because the importance of data protection, the importance of cybersecurity is still there. And we can look to that now.
Thank you, Tim. My next question is for Gayatri from TCS. So you've been working a lot on agentic AI and other models of AI. So what new risks and responsibilities have emerged with the rise of these new generative AI and AI agents and in the whole of this AI ecosystem? What are the actual new risks which have been?
Absolutely. Good afternoon, all. It's a real pleasure and honor to be part of India AI Impact Summit. I think it's rightly named as Impact Summit. So coming to your question, Reena ji, what are the new risks and responsibilities which have come across along the way in Gen AI and agentic AI? Well, the AI risks are not new, right? We have been dealing with them for over a decade. I think Mr. Rohit also mentioned about we having standards for about 8 years in traditional AI, so-called. So when we thought we have stabilized it, we have known the ways to see the inaccuracies or model drifts, on how do we train them, how do we manage them. Then came Gen AI about 2-3 years back, which paradigm, there is a paradigm shift in the way Gen AI introduced risks, right? It led to deep fakes, it led to IP infringements, which have not been thought so far before. And hallucination is not just about inaccuracy, but the confident fabrication of the facts it's giving, right? So that has brought in a lot different angle on how these risks have to be managed, how these risks have to be prevented. So when we thought we have some ways of grounding the models into non-hallucinating and having stringent governance, then came agentic AI, which don't only generate but also act on this risk. They execute, they call APIs, they access systems, they execute irreversible transactions. So I think the risks are, like the capabilities are also exploding, the risks are also exploding, Reena ji. And responsibilities, I would say it's everybody's pie. I think from the model providers, deployers, distributors, implementers, it's everybody's responsibility to have these responsible AI practices. In TCS, we have a responsible AI framework and what we call as safety tenets, responsible tenets. It's an acronym. S stands for secure and reliable AI systems. A stands for accountable. Who is accountable at the end of the day, right? And F is fair and ethical. At the end of it, is it whatever gains we are gaining because of the AI, is it fair and ethical? and transparent? Is it transparent and explainable? And is it also giving you the identity and the privacy protection, the much needed one? So I think responsible AI is everybody's spy. Everybody should be taking that very seriously.
Thank you. I think the standards also come in there, playing a very important role.
Absolutely.
And like you need to have some initial guidance to identify those risks and how to behave responsibly. So the initial guidance will of course come from the standards, and over and above, like the organization like yours will build up your own system to follow those kinds of responsible AI ecosystem.
Absolutely. The standards, coming to the standards part, Rinaji, we are, as Mr. Rohit also said, SE42, I think is a subcommittee which has most number of standards, and many standards are being built as well. The focus is currently on the agentic AI. How do we standardize the agentic AI practices, and what are the different dimensions? How agents are going to interoperate, how they are going to orchestrate, and how can they be standardized? So many things are in progress, many exciting times to come.
Thank you, Gayatri. And coming to the governance, like we all know that recently, like earlier this year, the Government of India released India AI Governance Framework, which is available for everyone to have a look at the MeitY website and also on the website of Office of PSA. So this is a very important document and defining, and it is talking a lot about standards. So in this reference, I would like to ask Abhishek, who is here from Ministry of Electronics and IT, like how do AI standards support governance, transparency, and accountability and risk management? So how do standards help in all these, addressing all these aspects?
Sure, ma'am. First of all, I would like to thank BIS for this session and inviting me here, and also being from the Ministry of Electronics and IT. I welcome all of you in this India AI Impact Summit and making it successful. It's a collaborative effort of you, us, BIS, and everyone. And since starting, we always want to be inclusive in this manner so that we can feel it's like a Bharat Ka Summit. As far as the role of standards in the AI governance, transparency, accountability, etc. is concerned. So the AI standards are like the operational backbone of the safe and trusted AI. So like policies and the strategies, etc., the governance frameworks, they articulate the intent. But these standards are the ones which which translate this intent into implementable technical and procedural processes. As like from the governance perspective, we see these standards introduce consistency and comparability, where the established the structured processes for the data sets, like data set documentation, model validation, and across the life cycle. And they also talk about the life cycle approach. The standards define transparency also in the system. Standards are the ones which defines how AI system designer build the transparency into the system. So like standards guide how models should be explained, how the limitations should be disclosed. And these transparency are very much important in the high impact sectors such as healthcare, agriculture, where we cannot afford any risks. Further, as far as accountability is concerned, as Sridhar mentioned, that right now we are struggling who is responsible. So standards are the one document who defines who will be the responsible across the AI value chain, starting from the development, developer, deployer, after that the management, and then the post-audit reports, etc. And further to what should be as ma'am already mentioned about the governance guidelines, what should be the approach of India approach towards the AI regulation, AI adoption, etc. We have Government of India has come out with the India AI governance guidelines last year on the 5th of November 2025. It was released by our principal scientific advisor along with our secretary MeitY. So it talks about what is the vision of government of India. We are pro-innovation, but we are also not compromising on the user harm. So in short, if we say that the standards are the one which reduce ambiguity and operationalize and build trust towards the deployment, responsible and safe deployment of AI at global, at the scale in India. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Abhishek. Back to you, Sridhar, again. Like we have been witnessing LLM, agentic AI, and we have already started discussing related to embodied AI. So, what could come next, and how must governance framework and standards co-evolve to ensure this responsible and trustworthy AI?
Right. I think again, like like all of us have been saying, right? Like AI is already here, right? It's not just one domain, from education to healthcare across, like even defense. So the critical question next is, if it is already here and if people start using it, which we are already doing, so the next critical thing would be to ensure that these AI solutions are safe, to ensure that they are trustworthy and responsible. Now, the current way, the way I would see is that we do not have established mechanisms to say that, yes, if I use a particular AI solution, let's say, ChatGPT or Claude, any of this, how do I know that it is trustworthy? How do I know that I can rely on this? So at this point of time, the next critical thing that I would say is, one is definitely the proliferation of proliferation of AI across the domains. But at the same time, how do we ensure that these systems are responsible? Now, it is here I see that, again, going back to, the government of India's approach on the governance guidelines, again, guidelines as such are not prescriptive in nature. So if there is an AI provider and if they say that, yes, we are in line with the guidelines, but if there is no enforcement, then there is definitely a risk, for the general public and good. So I think we are at a pivotal point where the proliferation is happening at a lot more exponential rate of AI across domains. And on the other hand, the governance guidelines are at this point of time suggestive in nature. So what I see next is, for how long can this nature of suggestive be there is the question. So a critical thing for us and for the standardization community and for the government of India is to look at how do we cross this line without hampering innovation. So I see that there is a need for a step-by-step or a stage-wise approach where we could say that the guidelines could be enforced in certain domains, whereas the guidelines could be of suggestive nature in other domains. So to me, this is critical, pivotal point where the standardization community, as well as MIT and all other academic and industry bodies, should think and deliberate on what are those sectors where we are okay with the guidelines to be suggestive, where it is not okay and it should be enforced as a regulatory thing. Now, just to add one more quick thing on this is, even if we assume and if we say that, okay, we want to enforce. So, for example, how do we know that our data is not compromised when we are using an AI tool today from a DPDP Act perspective or a privacy perspective? Right now, we don't have answer, but as I see it, as I envision it, I see that there will be novel approaches, right, both from academia as well as industry, to come up with ways to verify if a particular privacy policy of an AI provider would adhere to some of the guidelines given by the MIT. So what next to me is, if I have to summarize, one is, of course, a lot more proliferation of AI across domains. The other is a stage-wise approach where we definitely need approaches and tools to guard, and ensure that these solutions are responsible. I would stop here. Thanks.
Thank you, Sridhar. Very well explained. And I think what you meant is that the government is giving us some specific guidelines, but what actually the users have to do, what actually the citizens have to do, that has to be more prescriptive in nature and more detailed, more comprehensive sort of documentation, maybe in terms of standards. And so a lot of responsibility again on standards community to work tirelessly and to keep on evolving, to keep on modifying, to keep on revising those existing standards. So thank you for that. And my next question, I'm coming back to Rohit again. So a lot of responsibility on JTC1, SE42 for evolving international standards, and like they have a overall structure of involving national standards bodies from various countries, various consortia, and various other entities as well, so that the standardization process is inclusive. And so in this reference, I think you are licensed between SE42 and Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD, and ML Commons. So what role do such forums and consortia play when the international standards are being developed in these areas?
That's an excellent question. That's an excellent question, Reenaji. And to what Sridhar was mentioning, and also what Abhishek alluded to, where he's also involved in GPAI, there are several conversations that need to occur, and they sometimes can be informative conversations for standardization. And among the two organizations, both of them play an interesting role. And OECD was the first organization to come up with a set of rules for AI, guidelines for AI. And there is a certain amount of activity that is what is called pre-standardization, which is a discussion among stakeholders, among countries, among various constituents. And that informs then a standard as it is being developed. In the case of OECD, they actually did an AI incident monitoring framework. This was ratified by, I think, all the OECD countries. And that was brought in the Delhi plenary, which was hosted by BIS last April. It was brought in as a new work item proposal for standardization. So something that was already kind of baked, done well, and it's required by every country. We have to monitor AI incidents. Now is a work item proposal in SE42. And that's one example of how a forum like OECD, is kind of impacting standardization. The other organization that I'm privileged to also be a liaison to is ML Commons. One of the things we notice about AI particularly, right? It's not a technology in which you do what is very structured testing. Standards talk about red teaming or prompts, where you're asking a series of questions and you're looking at the response and you're identifying toxic behavior that's not acceptable, biased behavior. But then to actually do this in practice, you need benchmarks. And that's a very important area where ML Commons is a consortia. It has a large number of companies across the world. Most of the large US companies are participating in it. They've come up with a set of questions, a benchmark called AI Illuminate. And now they have one for jailbreak. And these are very critical and important elements, because a standard can say, do red teaming, but how? You need a benchmark, and that's where an organization like ML Commons comes in. And besides that, I am a liaison for two. It's to the credit of SC42 chair. While there, he's been the chair from the inception. We have 89 or 90 liaisons with several organizations like this. So it's like all of us coming together and actually helping move the ecosystem further. Stop there.
Thank you, Rohit. That was quite comprehensively addressed. And next, I'm coming back to Tim. So as the AI market development lead at British Standards Institution, what are your views on how standards can keep pace with rapid innovation in LLM and generative AI?
Yeah, it's definitely a subject of interest to me, because, as you mentioned, we do assurance of systems. And to do assurance, you need to have standards and accepted best practice in place. So getting that in place is important for us. I think as has been mentioned, we are in a good position because the standard system started working on AI over 10 years ago now. I think it's 2015. So we're quite far down the line in terms of that system. And the important parts are there, so terminology, risk management, governance. And those have been adapted as we get new, so general purpose AI is coming through, and there are new standards starting in there, and there's also work coming through. And I think it's very important that the standards community continues to work at pace and work with liaisons as well, who can bring in sort of new ideas and build this system out to meet the needs of all stakeholders around the world.
Coming to Gayatri again, how do you think, whether these existing standards are sufficient to address the complexities of LLM and generative AI? Where exactly should the standardization community should focus on to address these two areas?
Well, I would say the existing standards definitely have given a strong foundation, right, for the Gen AI. And a lot of adoption we are seeing from the industry perspective. A lot of our clients, different organizations from various sectors are adopting for 2001 the AI management system standard, and for 2005 for AI system impact assessments. A lot of standards are already existing and being adopted, and they lay a very good foundation. But are they enough? Seeing the nature of AI, the nuances coming through Gen AI and agentic AI, the existing standards also have to be evolved, developed. New standards are definitely needed, right? In just to throw a small light on that area, in SE 42 we are focusing, as I said, more on agentic AI standards. There is a lot of focus being given on resilience of an AI system, reliability of an AI system, robustness of AI system. And Rohit mentioned about the incidents, how the AI incidents are going to be addressed. So I think the standards are also have to keep pace with the technology. It's going to be the co-creation of standards with the technology. Currently, technology is kind of outpacing the standards, but we are also gearing up. We will also have the standards rapidly built, and to ensure that the technology is indeed giving benefit to the mankind.
Thank you, Gayatri. Again, moving to Abhishek again. You've already talked about this, but what are the other ways on how AI standards can complement AI regulations and national AI strategies from the government perspective?
In my view, the AI regulation or the national strategies and the standards means both are complement to each other. Both are required to support each other. National strategies or like AI regulation, they define what should be done, but standards are the things which define the process, how it should be done, or how objectives of these national strategies should be achieved. Also, like AI is very evolving, so the standards are provide the adaptive technical guidance, so that which supports the innovative life cycle changes, but also remain intact and aligned with the national regulatory goals. Further, as for a country like India, where we are pursuing a pro-innovation approach, these standards support us and help us in ensuring that the domestic AI systems are competitive and comparable with the others globally, also ensuring and reflecting the national priorities. In the India AI governance guidelines, it talks about the accountability, it emphasizes the explainability, access to data, access to compute, and these standards are help operationalizing to achieve these priorities. They define the path how to achieve these priorities across the sectors and without compromising and stifling the innovation.
Thank you, Abhishek. So as I understand, standards are the tools to implement regulations brought out by the government. So the standards will be actually used for implementing whatever government is prescribing. So, we have completed 2 rounds of questions and answers within very stipulated time frame. So there's little bit time left. I would like to utilize that with one common question to all of you, all the panelists. So, what is that one concrete action and suggestion you would recommend for organizations to ensure deployment and usage of safe, trusted, and responsible AI solutions, as well as to integrate AI governance with national and international standards? So, maybe we can start from Tim and then go around all the panelists.
Yeah, and just one thing I'd also, in terms of the last question, reference out around the link between standards and regulation. So taking 2 other examples, and there are various different ways that countries are approaching regulation of AI. So, for example, in the UK, where I'm from, the government is pushing towards standards and assurance as a way of demonstrating good AI governance, but not pushing regulation. And the other thing, sort of close to where I am from, is also the EU AI Act, which sets out, which is the first comprehensive piece of AI regulation in the world, which sets out, the what, but there's the standards that provide the detail, and that's where certain organisations will need to have to work with a notified body to get their products onto the market. So the standards are very closely linked to the way that the regulation is going to work in the EU. And in terms of what you can do, I mentioned earlier on that around 42001, and India is already a lead in this space. So in terms of number of accredited certifications in the world, it's number 2. And also leading through, so Axis Bank recently got certified, and that's the first bank in the world to be certified to 42001, so sort of real leadership that's there. And there's a lot of materials around to help with 42001, to understand what it is, how you put it in place. So take a look at that and sort of build out through from the standard forward, because that's the main framework that's used around the world for AI.
Sure, I think one concrete action is to adapt these standards, Rinaji, not to see standards as an alien or an outside thing. The organizations should adapt standards organically throughout the life cycle of their business, right? And as Tim also said, for 2001 is gaining prominence, and we are also hearing and seeing in the industry. And I would also say more focus on the upcoming technology and standards which are going to come in that space. I think standards we need to take very, very seriously.
So I will echo the same point, and you will hear this number a lot, 42001. But I will also add one more number, adding 6 to it, which is a standard called 42007. We haven't released this yet. It's in development. But as Sridhar alluded to, a lot of the current, like 42001 as well, it's a standard that talks about process. These are the things you should do. These are the elements of governance. You should have a committee that looks at it. You should identify the risks. You should mitigate the risks. That's what 42001 does. But as we get sector specific, there perhaps is a need for doing product level testing, right? There may be for a certain high risk application. There may be a need for you to do more than just 42001. And that's where the US actually proposed 42007, which is built on existing series of conformity assessment. It's a part of what's the ISO has, a conformity assessment body. Conformity assessment is how, aircrafts run today. Various parts of aircrafts go through various tests and certifications. There is an accreditation process, right? So 42007 will allow sector-specific consortia to build schemes, to build, let's say, for this particular application, a consortia, a group of people in that vertical, leading stakeholders and thought leaders, creating a scheme. Here are the things that you need to do additionally in terms of testing so that you can be assured of a certain level of safety. And this is a standard that's being developed, 42007, and I think it has great kind of value to the overall ecosystem.
Yeah, thanks. I think I can see multiple things, but maybe to sort of summarize. So one definite concrete thing that I see is the assessment of an AI system cannot be static anymore. It's like, an AI system has been developed, and let's say, they go through compliance or whatever, and then say we are 42001, compliant. But they can't say that, we have done this, and then the next year we will do. So I definitely see a need that we have to look at continuous assessment of AI systems. So the static to continuous is a concrete thing that I think we have to think as a community, both the standards community as well as from the government side. The second critical thing that I envision is that there is a need for standards. Again, like the way I would see it is India cannot be just adopter of standards, but we need to create our own standards because we have multilingual scenarios. We have very diversified data sets. We have a lot more scenarios where this context is unique. So the approach to we will take 42001 or 42007 and then adapt them to India versus having an approach that starts looking at standards, saying that in the Indian context, AI is being used by billions of people, right? Now, in that case, how do we look at creating standards that consider, Indian context is a critical thing in my view as well, right? And to sort of one more quick thing is we also need to look at, again, whether it could be BIS or, the MIT or the government, any AI-based product or a process that comes out or being used, there should be some sort of a hallmark. I know it could be, being an academic, I can say that, no, I want to envision a future, right? But I also see that there should be a mark that should be labeled and said that, hey, this AI system, probably, the privacy policy is not validated yet. So then, there should be an explicit mark. So I definitely envision that this is a direction that, and in fact, that's a request or an ask from the MIT, where we have to look at these systems and see if we can label AI systems across these different levels so that it's visible in terms of whether a particular AI system has gone through the compliance process or is still evolving. Yeah.
Absolutely, very well said, Sridhar. And I think India realized this, and we have been proposing standards at JTC 1 SE 42, and I think one on benchmarking of AI system was proposed by India. So initial thought was this only, to have some sort of labeling on the products, keeping in mind that kind of benchmarking system. But later on, after deliberations and other, within the SC42 community, the standard is, I think, has already been in the stage of publication. And so we'll see what comes out of that standard. So very much agree with what you are saying for the interest of all the citizens. So there should be some kind of, labeling or some kind of how much AI is there in one particular product, or how much we can rely upon that kind of product through some kind of labeling thing. So that is for us to ponder over in future, and also think of from the standardization perspective, the guidelines to do so. So over to you, Abhishek.
Yeah. So in my view, the organizations should adopt safety by design approach across the entire life cycle. Start from the deployment, initialization phase, designing phase, and then the development phase, deployment phase, post-deployment phase, auditing phase also. And we in India AI mission also, we emphasize on the trust by design approach. And for this, we are building various solutions, a set of toolkits, such as ethical AI frameworks for watermarking and labeling, defect detection tools, and machine learning, etc. So we have already initiated 13 projects, or 13 organizations have been interested to develop these toolkits. As far as the governance guidelines by Sridhar sir mentioned. So it's not it's not a document that has been done and it's completed yet. It's a living document, and BIS is also a part of this committee. And we, in this current version also, BIS has given many, they have give us various inputs, and like the various standards which are existing in the AI are also mentioned there. And we never said that this is the final document, and it's a living document. It will be reviewed time to time, so that because as we believe that AI is evolving very rapidly, and our guidelines, our regulations, our approaches needs to be updated time to time, so that we can keep pace to that. Otherwise, we are saying we should be pro-innovation, but we should not. We should avoid user harm without compromising user harm. But if we do not update ourselves, we do not update these guiding documents, then it will be difficult to make this delicate balance between the innovation and balancing the user harm. So it will be done. It will be keep updated, and the more guidance will be added. As far as prescriptive nature of the guidelines, currently it shows a vision. It's talk about the vision and what should be the approach, what should be done. But as far as implementation is concerned, it also talk about goals, like the short-term goals, long-term goals. They are also defined here, which we intend to complete, so that does not become just a guiding document. Further, as far as regulation is concerned, currently we believe our existing regulations, whether it's an IT Act or a BNS or the other acts, from the user harm perspective, they are already taking care, because any wrongdoing to any person or any citizen is already covered in these acts. And as per the provisions of these acts, the punishable things can be executed and punished under these acts. So creating another law or act for this means we feel right now we can rely on the existing laws even for the deepfake. Deepfake is a crime whether it is done using AI or not using AI. It is always a crime, and we already have provisions in our acts to prosecute anyone who is guilty for that. So, but we are also open in future that if required, we can come up with that. But right now, we do not feel we are at that moment to maintain that balance of innovation and to prevent the user harm. Thank you.
Thank you, Abhishek. I think, in the interest of time, can we take one quick question? Only one. I have the mic. Okay, please, quickly.
Yep. My question is to Sridhar. First of all, thank you all it's a great session and very informative as well. My name is Ankita. I'm doing my master's in cybersecurity. And as you said, having standards sector-wise, like vertical approach on building these standards. And you also said another thing, that for India, it's a diverse country, so we should have standards according to that. What do you think should be the approach of the government, considering that we are already late and we also have quantum coming in next few years? What should be the approach right now, according to you?
Yeah, a quick, thought that's coming in my mind is, I think we should have a way to configure context-specific standards. So, like, the governance guidelines that are generic versus, the cybersecurity-related or IT Act or other acts. So, it's really hard to implement all of that for every product. But what I would say is, we have to create a context and create a configurable, standards or, guidelines that are related or specific to that. So I think, if we can come up with a framework where we can configure the existing guidelines or standards that are specific to a particular domain, I think that could be a potential.
Our time is already up for the next session, but I would I would just because
On
the
that
next
part,
session
I would like to add one more thing.
we can discuss offline, like we can because the next session is there.
Yeah,
So-
we just want to add one more thing. In the AI governance guidelines, they are talking about like the overall approach. They do not talk about the sectoral regulations or sectoral guidelines. And guidelines says that they should be taken up by the sectoral regulators. And if you see over the period of last year, RBI has come up with their own guidelines for the financials. SEBI has also come up with their own guidelines. Similarly, CCI has also come up with the report. So the mighty or one agency in the government cannot define the complete guiding structure for everything. And we are also envision in the governance guidelines about the risk framework, about defining the risk of the application, so that accordingly guidelines can be defined sector to sector. Because all means we cannot compare each and every sector at a same stage or at the same level.
I
do you
would
think,
like to stop like at this point of time and thank all the distinguished panelists for their valuable insights, and also to our audience who is very eager to ask so many questions, but I'm very sorry because of the time limit. And thank you so much for this important conversation, which was really engaging. And we'll be happy to answer your questions offline, like outside this hall. Thank you so
I
much.
thank all the speakers. To express our appreciation, we would now like to present mementos from BIS and MIT to our esteemed moderator and panelists as a token of gratitude for their valuable contribution to this discussion. For that, I would like to invite Mr. Jitendra Kumar, Scientist E and Head from LITT Bureau of Indian Standards, to present the memento to Dr. Sridhar Chimalakonda. To Mr. Rohit Izrani, Ms. Gayatri Kambaram, Mr. Tim Megar, Mr. Abhishek Agrawal, and to our moderator, Mrs. Reena Garg. Now, I would like to request Mrs. Kshitij Bhatla, Member Security of AI Committee, for the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Kavita. I would say that was a wonderful session with all the relevant speakers, panelists that we have. And specifically, I would say the session has bring out the point of that assessment and conformity assessment should be continuous. And the standard that ma'am was mentioning about is the 42106 standard. That is